Samuel Leeds here, and today I'm joined by Dr. Dez. Dez, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Samuel.
So what are you, I know you're a doctor,
Sure.
You've got quite a large practice.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Why did you decide to get into property?
So it was back in sort of late 2017, I saw your YouTube videos and then I read your book. And I was finding that in late 2017 I was investing in stocks and shares and sort of what I thought were safe investments, and I wasn't getting my return on investments, so I was investing cash in things that I was taught to believe were safe. And then when I read your book, I realised there was another way of investing my cash. A big motivator for me was my children, because I've got 4 children. So my oldest child is 8, and I've got a baby who's 1. So and ranges in between. And I really want to start off a legacy for my children.
Yeah.
So financially, I'm doing quite well through my career. But what I need to leave behind is a portfolio, and that's what I felt would be appropriate to do. And I see property as a really good investment vehicle, but I needed to do that with some training and some support.
I remember when we had our one-on-one,
Yeah.
and I remember when you just couldn't stand the idea of having mortgages.
Correct, yes.
Which I get. We're going to have to agree to disagree to some sort of
That's right, yeah.
But I kind of get that.
Yeah.
Tell us kind of what happened, because I was saying you want to leverage your money as much as you possibly can.
Correct.
Because you're going to get high return, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, because in your mind you're thinking, I don't want to leave debt to my children, or you didn't want to retire with loads of mortgages, did you? So what are you doing as your strategy now?
Sure. So yeah, the discussion really was about, you were suggesting like interest only, and most landlords have an interest only, and I couldn't get my head around that because I wanted my debts paid, as it were, and because I was leaving it as a legacy, I didn't want to hand over a debt. That was the mentality I had. And then I thought about it, I toyed with the idea of interest only, and then I actually started sitting and chatting with some mortgage brokers, and when I did the return on investment sheets, I looked at the difference between repayment and interest only. There's a few £100 a month difference, and in my strategy I wasn't looking for monthly cash flow as the biggest factor. The extra £100 a month or £150 a month wouldn't have made a major difference to my end goal.
Yeah.
What would make a difference is having an unencumbered portfolio
for
my children.
And I get that, because everyone's in property for a different reason,
Correct,
aren't they?
yeah.
Property is a vehicle.
Yeah.
So why did you decide? You said you were looking at stocks and shares beforehand.
Yes.
What was it about property that made you think it was a lot better? Because now you've got property now.
Correct. Yeah.
And you've got tenants, and you've been on the academy now for what, about 4 or 5 months? I don't know.
4 or 5 months, not a long time at all. Not a long time at all.
So why did you choose property? Because as someone who's got a large, firm, should we call it? You've got money, you can invest. Mm-hmm. You must have thought long and hard about, and you were definitely a thinker.
Oh yeah,
so you must have thought.
Spreadsheet.
What strategies did you look at, and what was it about property that made you decide to go down that route?
So initially, looking back now, after I joined the academy, I started reading books like the Robert Kiyosaki book, the cash flow books, and I actually learned that I was quite a passive investor. I thought by investing and giving to stockbrokers or giving to fund managers that I was being an investor, and technically I was, but I was being a very amateur stroke informal investor.
Yeah.
I thought actually with property, I know exactly where my money is going. I know it's a long-term asset, and once I read your book, I saw that actually the money I could put in and leverage it with a mortgage, and the money I was putting into stocks and shares, there was no leverage in stocks and shares at all. Thinking back, if you put X number of pounds into stocks and shares, you get X number of pounds worth of stocks and shares, and that's it. There's no leverage capacity there.
Yeah, and in fact, it's funny you say you read the book, because the strategy that you've gone on to do, certainly up until now, has been very much around buy low, rent high,
Correct.
HMOs.
Yeah.
You've had a HMO just completed in Middlesbrough.
That's right, yeah, on the 28th of September. So that was a property that I found myself after doing your DFE training.
And it's funny because you're such a passive person.
Yeah.
When we first spoke, you were like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to have to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm a doctor and I want to focus on this. And you really want to be passive. And I pleaded with you, didn't I? I said, look, even if you just have to drive up to the area once, because you don't want people to be able to pull the wool over your eyes.
True.
You don't want sources, because there's a lot of bad property sources out there.
Yeah.
To package up a deal that looks great on paper, but then you buy it and it's terrible. So I said, just go down once. You came on the deal finding extravaganza. I don't think, did you even go to a crash course?
No, I actually joined the academy first, and the very first course I did was the DFE.
So you just fast-tracked right to the very top then, no messing at all, because you value your time so much.
Right.
Not that the crash course is not extremely valuable, but you wanted to go right in on the deep
Just go
end.
straight for it, yeah.
So what happened in Middlesbrough then when you went to Middlesbrough?
So the first property I went to view, I viewed several properties on Rightmove, and I found one that was marketed as a 6-bed. It was a fully licensed HMO. I think I went there around the Easter time. And when I went there to see the property, I measured up the rooms, and 2 of the rooms didn't stack up. And I was there with the estate agent holding the tape measure and said, "You sure this is that been let out as a 6-bed?" And he said, "Yeah, this has been let out as a 6-bed for a good few years." So well, it doesn't stack up now because it's only 4 rooms I can realistically let.
Yeah.
But by that time, I'd made some contacts with the council, so I'd made some contacts with Steve Beamerson, and I was ringing him and saying, "Look, I've got this property. I'm not sure whether it will stack up. Do you mind if I come round and measure it?" So by then, I was already making informal networks. But on that day, I got there and I couldn't make an offer on the property because it just didn't stack on the spreadsheet.
So on Rightmove, it looked great. It said it was an up and running 6-bed HMO.
Yes.
And everything. But then you went and you were a bit wiser.
Yeah.
Because of the training.
Correct, and it was all down to the room sizes. And
Yeah.
if I didn't know any differently, I would have bought it, and I would have bought it at a very inflated price.
And you not only would you have bought it at a very inflated price with the new licensing rules, you wouldn't have got a license on it.
No.
And you'd have actually been a bit stuffed.
Yes, I would have been screwed. Yeah. Yeah.
So, which is important to get trained.
Yeah.
And also to sometimes go yourself, because Rightmove packaged it as a HMO, and it's just estate agents just talk absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
So what are the minimum squared for a room?
Or you
I'm
tested
testing you
me now. It's 7.5 square meters.
I know in feet, 70 squared feet.
70
so,
square feet. Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough.
But
yeah.
you knew on the day at
Yeah,
least. You
yeah.
or even not necessarily having all the knowledge in your head,
Yeah.
but knowing where it is.
Yeah.
Having the team to be able
Yeah.
to go and ask and support. So how did you feel that when that didn't work? Did you feel like it was a real wasted trip, or?
I built up some rapport with the agent whilst I was there, because I was bouncing it off him. So, you sure this is a HMO? Does the landlord know that this doesn't stack up as a HMO going forward from
And when you say
October
stack
18?
up, you mean it's not legit, right? It doesn't work.
Yeah,
It's not.
and I was trying to sort of build some rapport with him, because he recommended that property as well, and he said it's a really good property. And because of that, he said, "Well, look, I know you've come a long way." And I said, "Well, I've come a long way just for this property. Have you got anything else on?" And he said, "Yeah, look, come and have a look at my screens. I've got this other property." And that was a 5-bed. It was fully let. It was a fully licensed HMO. And for the first time telling you now, I actually made an offer there and then. Said, right, I'm going to make an offer on the price. I'm going to go for the asking price, but I want to come back in 2 weeks and I want to meet the owner. I want to go around the property with the owner.
With your tape measure as well.
Exactly, tape measure, everything. And when I was with the owner, I was there for about an hour and a half with him, just viewing this property.
Yeah.
I asked him everything about what the letting history was, how big the rooms are, what renovations he's done, whether he's had any problems letting it out. And I learned from that first experience that actually going straight to the owner, even with the agent there, is really valuable.
Because the agents will often just say a lot of rubbish, but the owner knows the property better than anyone.
Yeah, and this chap that I've bought it off, I think he's got about 14 properties,
Right.
which are all HMOs.
So why was he selling then?
So he was selling to release his equity
Yeah.
to move on to bigger projects.
Sure.
And that property's had a 5-year letting history without fail.
So why don't you tell us the figures then? Because you've now got it. Is it renting out?
Yeah, so I bought it with tenants, so I made sure I had the tenancy agreements going into August 2019.
Great. So you've got guaranteed rent of like a year basically.
Yes,
then?
correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how much rent are you getting?
Okay, so the rent is 1711 per month, so 1711 per
Okay.
month.
So £1,711 per month. That's not bad. How much do you buy the property for?
135,000 fully furnished and all specced up.
Okay, 135 grand. And is it definitely worth that? You paid a good price for it.
Yeah, it got valued up at that. I did the maths as well. It worked out about 27 grand a room over the 5 rooms.
Not
But
bad.
that was with the furniture, with the fire alarms,
Yeah.
with sitting tenants.
Yeah.
I knew it had been licensed, and I spoke to Steve Beamson again about the property, and he was the one that licensed it first time round.
Great. So
I had
you
my
knew that you
networks
got a real
already.
good. And the return on investment. Have you worked that out?
Yeah, so I've added everything, including the tax and the legals and the renovation work. There's a light bit of refurb, so a deep clean, and some painting and decorating that needed doing in the tenancy void
Yeah.
period. On a repayment mortgage, it's about 22%.
Yeah.
And on an interest only mortgage, it's 29%. I'm going for the 22% return on investment.
Although you say 22%, it's actually 29%, but you're just choosing with the 8% profit to put that towards paying off the mortgage.
Correct. Yeah.
But the fact that you've just bought a property that's given more than 20% return on investment is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's great.
How do you feel with the result of what you're doing?
I feel really good with the results, actually. Yeah, I'm really happy with what I've got. The fact that I sourced it myself with your training has really given me some confidence to source other properties myself, and I'm becoming less passive. I thought I would be a passive investor. So here's your sourcing for you guys. Just bring me the goods. And actually, I'm more interested in it now.
Why is that then? And how does it work, juggling? Because you've got a very what do we say, a high pressure job, I guess you could say, running the business that you run. How does it work? Working so many hours, high pressure business. I know you love it, and I know it's your passion.
I'm going to keep doing that.
I get that.
Changing that.
How does it work running that alongside building a property portfolio, especially yourself? It's not like you're just paying someone to find you properties. You're hands-on. How do you juggle that, and how does it work?
There's actually quite a lot of time free that was being used in things like watching TV.
Yeah.
Some box sets that I'm watching, and it sounds like a sacrifice, but it isn't, because I actually enjoyed looking on Rightmove and tracking things down and quickly sifting out, actually, that's no good. And that sort of skill is quite rewarding, because that is something I would not have been able to do 8 months ago, 9 months ago. I would have thought all these properties look great.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a game, really. And then when I've got annual leave, I go down, and it takes me about 3.5 hours to go down and view a property. And I engage with the estate agents, have a chat with them, and quiz them. So I actually quite like the interaction with them. So it's more,
so it's almost like you just see it as a hobby, as a game.
It's a game.
Instead of watching box sets or whatever you would normally be doing, you're just seeing that as your entertainment.
Yeah.
And at the same time, building a legacy for your family.
Yeah.
What are you wanting to achieve then long term? Because most people, when I speak to them, especially on the academy, I'm like, what's your plan? Right, I've got a 3-month plan. In the next 3 months, I want to replace my income. I want $3,000 a month. You were really different. You said, right, I think it was a 20-year plan, or maybe longer.
I had the spreadsheet on my laptop, said colour coded and everything.
Yeah, you had like a 20-year or 30-year plan, something crazy. When I'm 67.
I think I had my children going across the top, how old they are now, when they'll be 18, and when I had it all planned out before I came to see you.
And it wasn't a short-term plan.
No.
You said, I'm not interested in getting quick cash flow. I'm wanting long-term. I want to build wealth and create a legacy. Why is that then?
It's what you can leave behind. Really. I'm 35 now, so the mortgage is 28-year mortgage, so usually 25-year mortgage. That'll take me to 60. I've got 4 children, and all these milestones I need to be factoring in somewhere. Clearly I've got my own pension plan as well, but again, with what other things I learned through reading through this book, there are other ways for my children to have a financial future that isn't medicine, it isn't an academic, it doesn't always have to be an academic career, it doesn't have to be anything, it can be just a skill set that they enjoy, really. And I've learned a lot about the education system and how people are educated into going into an academic job, and the only way to be successful is go do this path and do this path and do that path. And with 4 children, I thought, well, there's got to be something else.
Yeah. Also, what does your wife think of what you're doing?
Interesting. So my wife is aware of what I'm doing, obviously, because
she will be when this video goes live.
She will. No, yeah, definitely. She's very supportive.
Yeah.
We're happy to work in the same partnership together as well. So we work together in business already, as partners at the practice. But on the investments and assets, that's my game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy that side of things.
What advice would you give to somebody? Because how long have you been a doctor?
I did med school from 2001 to 2006. That's when I finished my medical training.
So a good sort of 12 years you've been actually practicing as a doctor. You've been training for even longer?
as a foundation doctor, and then being a GP, and then being a GP for the last few years since 2011.
Firstly, why did it take you so long, do you think? I know you're still young, you're only 35, but why did it take you?
Got that on video as well, it's good.
Why do you think it took you up until now to get into this?
I was working, and I was working on my own career, and I think over the last year I've got to a point in my career where I'm really happy with where I am with my career, and I can see a long-term future in my career because I'm a partner at the practice, and I can see the next 25, 30 years there. So I know that's set out, and I'm going to stay there, and I'm not planning to move anywhere with that side of things. So with that long security plan that I've got there with my career and my income, I now have got a long investment plan. Prior to that, I was moving jobs, I was still in training, I wasn't quite sure which practice I was going to stay in. There was all that uncertainty really. So with that stability comes the investment stability and the legacy stability.
So your focus was to get your practice set up successfully.
Correct.
And then when you thought, right, I've done that now, and that's going great, because it's interesting because a lot of people go into property because things aren't going great. Oh, my job's not working, or I hate my job, or I'm not making enough money, and they go into property. But for you, it was a case of, great, I'm making loads of money. I've arrived, I love doing what I'm doing, and now I'm going to go into property, which is backward to a lot of people. What would you say to someone watching this who was also successful, loved their job, was making good money, and was now thinking, should I go into property? What advice would you give to those people?
I'd advise firstly to read your book, and certainly watch your videos, and at least come on your crash course. And
you have been on the crash course now, have you?
I've been on one day of the crash course.
Okay,
yeah, so I've got the other half to do.
But you can still vouch for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I just open your mind. But my advice is, don't be afraid of investing in your education, because the academy is an investment in my education. And when people go to university, they're quite happy to invest in their education to go to university or go to an apprenticeship program. The academy is no different. It's an investment in education.
Yeah. And how have you found the first half or almost half of the academy so far?
Fantastic. It's brilliant. I really can't fault it, really. And the extra training dates that I put in, just here and there, the value is amazing. And the extra training as well that you get, it's not just about property training. So for example, today we're learning about marketing, we're learning about structuring, and we're learning about systemizing. That's transferable to all. I'm going to transfer that back to my business.
Brilliant.
And get back. So there's lots of value if you look at the details that are there.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure working with you, and look forward to seeing you real soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Dez.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for watching the video. That is the reason why I'm doing this. Your success is my oxygen. Every single week we've got people becoming financially free. If you'd like to see more success students, you can do that right here. But what I'd really suggest is, why don't you come and join us at the Property Investors Crash Course? Come along, my guest, completely free, and I'll personally be there for 2 days to help you get started. You can see what happens right here. What you'll notice is all of these stories, they all start at the crash course. So come along, my guest, can't wait to see you there. Peace out.